I died when I was 15, but the thing that kept me awake for the next 3 years wasn't the moment my heart stopped, or the blinding light at the end of the tunnel, or even the chaos in the emergency room. It was a question, a single question that God asked me as I stood before Him. A question that had nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with doctrine, nothing to do with how many times I prayed each day. He simply asked me, "Do you truly know who I am?" My name is Ariana Carter, daughter of 2 Muslim immigrants living in Michigan. I was raised in a home where tradition was sacred and rules were clear. I once believed I knew exactly what was right and wrong, who was God and who was just a prophet. I defended my faith like a young warrior dressed in armor forged from the Quran, from my father's teachings, from stories passed down through generations. I believed I held the truth. Until I died and truth came to find me. It didn't shout, it didn't tear me from my family, it didn't strip away my identity. It simply stood there, silent, radiant, and loving me in a way no one ever had. And in that moment, every layer of belief I had worn like a mask burned away. I saw Jesus. Not the Jesus from textbooks or debates, but the living Jesus, the real Jesus. Jesus like light piercing through the thick fog of my doubt. He didn't look like what I had been taught, but He didn't reject my past either. He just stood there and let me see Him, and recognize what deep down I had always known but never dared to admit. There are truths you can only understand once you've died, and I did die, but that was also the moment I truly began to live. My name is Ariana Carter, and my life used to be drawn in 2 distinct colors. On one side was strict, ancient faith, tied to the mosque, the headscarf, and Arabic prayers I could recite but never fully understand. On the other side was a public high school, American friends, classes in science and biology, and questions I was never allowed to ask. I lived between 2 parallel worlds, like walking a tightrope, never leaning too far in either direction, yet always feeling like I was losing something more important than faith, more important than freedom, myself. I was the child who stood behind the curtain listening to my father debate politics and religion, the girl who quietly pulled out her headphones whenever her mother walked into the room, the one who nodded during lectures about heaven, but at night stared at the ceiling and whispered, "Are you even real?" I didn't rebel, I didn't fight. I simply lived in silence, as if I needed permission to exist inside my own story. Every morning began with a prayer. Every night ended with the exhaustion of hiding tiny things, like a strange book tucked into my backpack or a thought I hadn't dared to name. I had never truly hated anyone, but I had never fully trusted anyone either, not even myself. Until one fateful morning when everything I knew, everything I believed, every layer I had worn like armor was stripped away. Not by a person, but by something invisible, something in the very house I had always thought was my safest place. And you wouldn't believe what killed me. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a disease. It was something every one of us is living with every single day without realizing it's slowly killing our souls. That morning began like any other. I woke up at 6 a.m., stared into the bathroom mirror, and told myself I was fine. I tied my hair, wrapped my scarf, touched the Quran on the shelf the way I always did, and hurried downstairs to help my mother prepare breakfast for my 2 younger siblings. The January air in Michigan was skin-numbing cold, but I had grown used to that chill, just as I had grown used to the unchanging rules of our household. The TV was broadcasting warnings about an incoming snowstorm, but I didn't pay attention. I had a biology test to study for, an unfinished essay, and a list of errands my mother needed me to handle after school. I had an entire life ahead of me that I thought I could manage step by step, plan by plan, word by word. But there was one thing I wasn't managing. One thing no one noticed. Something small, silent, invisible, floating through the air like a ghost with no scent and no color. What would later be called the silent killer, carbon monoxide. We didn't know the detector had been broken for over a week. We couldn't smell it. We couldn't hear it. We only felt an odd sense of tiredness settling over us like fog. I started feeling dizzy while packing food into my sister's backpack. She complained of a headache and asked to stay home. My mother looked more tense than usual, but none of us imagined that within minutes we would all collapse like dominoes knocked over by an unseen hand. I reached for my phone. My arm went stiff. The world around me began to shift, not shake, but drift away as if reality were sliding off its axis. I saw my mother's worried face blur and recede as though through a film of tears. I tried to scream, but no sound came. I collapsed onto the floor with a strangled gasp. And then everything left me. I no longer knew who I was or where I was. I couldn't feel my body. But the strange thing is, the moment my heart stopped beating, the moment my final breath left my lungs, was also the moment I began to see more clearly than I ever had before. I found myself in a space of complete and utter darkness, where time and gravity no longer held meaning. And in that darkness, I heard the first voice. Not a human voice, not an echo, but a sound that pierced straight into my soul, trembling through every part of me, as if for the first time in my life I had been called by my true name. I woke up in a realm of darkness with no anchor, no sound, no direction. It was as if someone had shut down all my senses and left my soul floating in a vast nothingness. I didn't know if I was standing or sitting. I couldn't tell if it was night or day, because time didn't exist there. Only the thickness of silence remained, and a strange sense of being trapped between death and something that didn't yet have a name. I call that place the absolute darkness, because even forming a thought felt like pushing through thick fog. I couldn't hear my mother. I couldn't see any light. I couldn't feel my body. But I knew I still existed. I knew I was still someone, even though everything that had once defined me, my name, my religion, my memories, had been stripped away layer by layer, like a fierce wind tearing through masks I didn't even know I was wearing. For the first time, I saw myself not through a mirror, but through raw and painful clarity. Every mistake, every lie, every time I tried to live up to someone else's expectations. Every glance of contempt I had received. Every moment I chose silence when I should have spoken. All the little things I had forgotten came back to me, like a storm of rain falling on my soul, drop by drop, until I could no longer bear the weight. And then, in that ultimate moment of breaking, when I felt I might dissolve into regret, a radiant light appeared, like lightning tearing through the night. A light that didn't come from the sun, and unlike anything human eyes had ever seen. It was white, yet also every color at once. It didn't blind me, it revealed me. I felt myself being pulled toward it, not by my feet, not by wind, but by a force that reached into the very core of who I was. The closer I got, the more I felt something that no human language is worthy of describing. It was peace. It was love. It was true. A truth I had never dared to believe could be real. And then I saw him, standing there, waiting. He wore no crown. There was no halo. He needed no introduction, no proof, because the moment my eyes met his, I knew more deeply than anything I had ever studied or believed that it was Jesus. Not the prophet I had once imagined, not the symbol people often debate, but a living presence, real, undeniable, beyond every definition. He didn't ask me to kneel. He didn't ask how many prayers I had recited or how often I had attended religious services. He just looked at me with eyes I could barely endure, Because in those eyes, I saw everything. My past, my present, my possible future. I saw the version of myself I could become if I let go. I wept, not out of guilt, but because for the first time in my life, I felt truly loved without having to earn it. I trembled and asked him, "Why me?" And he answered with words that silenced everything in me. "Because I have always been a part of you, even when you denied me." I thought I might dissolve in that light, but he placed his hand on my chest, where my heart once beat and now lay still, and said, "Go back. Tell them, not to argue, not to convert, but to remind them that love is not confined to religion. It lives in truth, the truth that we are loved unconditionally by a being we do not have to fully understand to be fully embraced by." And before I could ask him anything more, the light vanished, and I was pulled back into the blaring sound of machines in the ER and the shattered voice of my mother crying my name. I woke up to the sound of beeping machines, the sterile scent of antiseptic, and the pale fluorescence of hospital lights. Nothing like the radiant light I had just left behind, but cold and flickering. I didn't know how long I'd been asleep. My mouth was dry, my chest ached, and my mother's tear-filled eyes were the first thing I saw. She clutched my hand and whispered prayers of thanks to Allah, her voice trembling with emotion. I wanted to say something, but my throat produced no sound. I didn't know where to begin. And deep down, I wasn't even sure I should, because what I was about to say would be unlike anything my mother had ever heard in her life. A few hours later, the doctor told my family that I had no heartbeat for almost 5 minutes. They said they weren't sure how I came back, but it was a miracle. I smiled quietly, because I knew I hadn't come back by miracle. I came back because of a call and a promise I now had to keep. But before I could even begin to fulfill that promise, my father entered the room with the heavy presence of a man who felt control slipping from his hands. His eyes didn't reflect the relief of a father who'd just gotten his child back. They showed fear of something awakening in his daughter that he couldn't contain. When I told him I had seen Jesus, not in a dream, not in a vision, but truly, he cut me off with a stare that chilled me to my bones and words sharp as steel. "Never say things like that again. You have shamed this family." I watched my mother lower her eyes as if torn in half by love and faith. My little sister remained silent, already learning from me the dangerous lesson of silence. My father didn't yell, he didn't strike me, but the silence that followed was more terrifying than any punishment. Because in that silence was a judgment heavier than any courtroom could deliver. At that moment, I understood. I had stepped outside the circle I once called home. I was still sitting in the same house, eating at the same table, sleeping in the same room. But I had changed. I carried a truth no one wanted to hear. And that truth became a quiet fire burning inside me, day after day. I pretended to be okay. I went to school, I did my homework, I prayed as expected. But within me, something was pulsing, a flame waiting, pressed down with every breath, but it would not die. Because there was one sentence Jesus had said to me that still echoed inside, like the first heartbeat after coming back. "If you stay silent, even the stones will cry out." I used to think the hardest thing in life was dying, but it's not. The hardest part is continuing to live after you've seen the truth, while everyone around you keeps pretending they haven't. It's waking up every morning in a home filled with love, but feeling the way people look at you has changed. It's sitting at the same dinner table you've known your whole life and feeling like a stranger at your meal. I tried to stay silent. I tried so many times to tell myself that keeping peace in the family was more important than the truth, that if what I saw couldn't be proven, maybe it shouldn't be spoken. But every time I closed my eyes, his face came back. not angry, not demanding, just present, quietly persistent, like a whisper that never stops reminding you of a promise. I must tell my story, not because I'm special, not because I understand all the doctrines or scriptures, but because I am a living witness of the most important truth of all, that the love of God is not limited by religion, ethnicity, gender, or past. I began writing my story in a small notebook. Each line trembled. Each paragraph felt like peeling away a layer of my memory. I no longer tried to prove anything. I simply told what happened, exactly as it happened. Then one day, I posted the first part of my story online. No name, no photo, just my voice, my real voice. I didn't expect what came next. Within days, hundreds of comments poured in from people I had never met. People who didn't know who I was, but carried in their hearts the same questions I had once carried. Questions like, is it real? Is Jesus real? Could that love be meant for someone like me? I couldn't answer them all, but I knew I had done the right thing. I wasn't rebelling against my family. I wasn't declaring war on my religion. I was simply refusing to stay silent about something that had saved me with a light that had no name. I knew my father would never read what I wrote. I knew my mother's heart would break. I knew my friends would talk. I knew I might lose everything. But I had just found something I hadn't felt in years myself. I was no longer the obedient, quiet Ariana. I was Ariana, who had died once and was given a second chance. Not to return to who I was, but to become who I had been shown I could be. And if you ask me what happens when you dare to live your truth, I will tell you about a stranger who sent me a message with just 2 words: thank you. I once said that when I met God, He didn't ask what religion I belonged to. That is still true. But there was something else He did ask, something I've carried with me ever since. When the light surrounded me, when I felt the purest love I had ever known, I heard His voice rise, soft as breath, yet louder than thunder in my soul. Do you know who I am? In that moment, I couldn't answer. I thought I knew, but I had only known Him through books, through other people's words, through images and assumptions. I had never met Him with my soul until that very moment, and it was in that second that I understood. Knowing about God and knowing God are 2 entirely different things. Since that day, I haven't lived to prove God is real. I live as if He truly sees me every second, every breath. I don't need to preach. I don't need to debate. I only need to be present and to tell you that this love saved me when I had nothing left to hold on to. This love called my name when everything else had gone silent. This love didn't wait for me to be perfect. It only asked me to be honest, to open my heart and speak the truth. If you're still here, if you've ever spent long nights wondering whether you are worthy of forgiveness, whether there is someone who truly sees you, knows you, and loves you even when you don't pray, even when you don't read scripture, even when you're unsure of what you believe, the answer is yes. You don't have to die to know He's there. You just have to be willing to let go of the things that once made you afraid. Be still long enough to hear the gentle voice calling from the deepest part of you. And if you still don't believe me, that's okay. I once didn't believe in myself either. I only ask that you remember this: the truth doesn't need your belief to still be true. And sometimes that truth will come to find you in the form of a 15-year-old girl who came back from death just to remind you that you are loved unconditionally, even if you don't understand why.